I still think DA Bragg should not bring a challenging case with a very challenging star witness in Michael Cohen over what is effectively a 7-year-old misdemeanor. Yes, he may have been under political pressure to do it, but not to hurt Trump's campaign, but to help his own. Joining me now is Donald Trump's former attorney and advisor, Rudy Giuliani. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right. So what do you make?
Thank you very much, Dan.
Well, what do you make of my point about the $280,000? You got to agree that it makes no sense that he continues to deny he had affairs with these women and just paid them $280,000.
You know, Dan, I agree with your substantive analysis. I probably disagree with some of the analysis of the motivation, but we come out in the same place. I think if you look at the amount of money that is paid for real sexual harassment complaints against people like Donald Trump, like the Fox settlements. Remember all those Fox settlements? I've represented one of the people involved in that. And those were like millions of dollars. One of them was 20 million, 5 million, 2 million, 4 million. The amount of money you're talking about always seemed to me to be, and I know this would sound strange to most people, nuisance value money for a multi-millionaire or billionaire. I mean, I've settled cases for people like that for $400,000 or $500,000.
But there was no allegation.
Which to me would be like settling it for $20,000.
But there was no allegation here of sexual harassment. They weren't saying they were harassed. They were just saying they had affairs with the guy and they were going to tell their story. That's not sexual harassment. That's just saying, hey, I'm going to tell my story about having a fling with Donald Trump. You don't get $20 million for that story. You get $130,000 for that story.
But I think the real motivation here, and Cohen himself made this very, very clear in his tape recording with Chris Cuomo. That's about 2 hours. The motivation here was he didn't want this to come out because of the damage it would do to his family, his wife, his kid, particularly because he was running for president. It would get even more attention. And that's really what deprives it of being a campaign contribution, like the Edwards situation.
Yeah.
If there's a countervailing or additional motivation other than just political, in Edwards' case, it was almost exactly the same, right? He was paying her to keep quiet because his wife was dying and he didn't want her to hear it. But he also was protecting himself in the campaign. The decision was made by the jury to throw it out, and then the commissioners have now taken the position that this is not a campaign contribution. So, I mean, that's why it's completely crazy. He's hanging it on a felony that a federal felony that the federal government doesn't consider a felony. Even Mueller.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on the rising it to the felony part. But here's the difference from the John Edwards case, all right? The difference is John Edwards admitted he had the affair. Why does Donald Trump keep denying that he had these affairs? He obviously had affairs with Stormy Daniels.
I don't know that. You don't.
Oh, come on. Do you actually have a doubt in your mind?
You don't know that.
Oh, come on. You really doubt that happened?
I don't convict people of things that I can't prove.
He's not convicted. It's not a court of law. He's not going to jail. I'm just saying it's obvious that, of course, these things happen. That's why they were getting paid for their stories.
If he is not telling the truth about that, that's not a crime.
No, it's not a crime. But it's a
not
weird
a crime
defense.
At all. It's not under oath. It's not perjury. I mean, Clinton committed perjury, and his moral conduct was even worse. So, I mean, he would be, well, yeah, sure. He's with a young girl who worked for him, having oral sex.
That's true.
In the White House.
Yes, that's true.
Not consensual.
Yeah. Well, consensual.
So, I mean, this is a ridiculous.
But look, but here's the thing. So
this is a ridiculous case to bring. But don't you agree, though? Other people do disagree with this, but I do think when you're going to bring a case against a president or ex-president, and the first one ever, it's got to be something where the American people as a whole, like Watergate, where the American people say, I'm a Republican, I thought Watergate was wrong. Right. I would not have been offended I was not offended by the Watergate prosecutions, and if Ford hadn't pardoned him, Nixon should have been prosecuted.
I agree with you. I agree.
I think Ford made the right decision ultimately.
Well, I think
but
so.
I don't think I thought it at the time.
Look, I hear you, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Here's the issue on this case, right? The falsifying business records. It's a misdemeanor. They're going to bump it up to a felony, as you pointed out. We don't know exactly what felony they're going to say that he was trying to conceal, but it's going to be a tough theory to win on. But it does seem like he falsified business records, right?
Well, did he?
Yeah.
Read the statute. Wait. Did he enter the business record?
Yeah. Look, he
didn't enter the
filed business records where he called this a legal expense, right? For $130,000.
Yeah, but did he enter the record?
Sorry?
Did he enter? When you read the statute and you look at the cases, there's no case like this one. The cases involve accountants and people who falsify, get paid to falsify. He denominated it as a legal fee, but he never entered a record. I mean, that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did.
I would assume
exactly what Hillary Clinton did with the money.
But I'd assume that it was laid out in his taxes as well as a legal expense, right? I mean, this was part of his legal expenses. Now, they're not going to charge him with tax fraud
expenses. But you don't really put legal expenses in your tax return. There's no denomination of legal expenses.
It could depend on what.
I mean, this was probably deducted.
Well, no, it is. Think about it. It's a business expense as opposed to personal expense, right? This is basically a personal expense.
Whether it's a legal expense or not, it's still a business expense.
Well, it's not a business expense if you're it's not a business expense if you're paying off women to not tell people about your affair with them. That's not a business expense.
Well, it sure is.
Really?
I mean, it could affect your reputation in business.
Sure
Absolutely.
Could. It sure could, but that's not a valid business expense.
I won't tell you. I think it is. I think the IRS would accept it as such.
Come on.
If you're doing that, I mean, sure, it would affect your reputation and the reputation of the key man, like Key Man Insurance, et cetera. So I think he's got about 100 legal arguments.
He does have a bunch.
Of which only one on each count has to win in order to get it dismissed. So I think, Dan, it's going to be dismissed. I think it's not going to ever get to trial. I think there are too many legal hurdles to overcome, unless again there's something else in the indictment, which both of us
we shall see.
Have to step back for a second.
We shall see.
Right. We have to both step back and say we're doing this based on what's been leaked.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.